Hey everyone, so Title Update 1 just came out a few days ago, and along with it, 2 new monsters and a bunch of new armor and weapons. So in today's video, we're gonna take a look at the new gear, see if it's any good, and I'm also gonna show you the new endgame meta builds. First off, we're gonna take a look at the weapons, because it's going to be the easiest to talk about. The first weapon is gonna be Mizutsune's bow, and right off the bat, this is not a good weapon at all. It has pierce coatings, which has very low damage, but it also has very low roll, very low elements, it has bad slots. The affinity is pretty good, but the rest of the stats are so bad that it's just not worth using. As far as the skill goes, Slicked Blade is a very good skill, but it requires you to wear Mizusune 4-piece, so that's just a non-starter, and Critical Element 1 is just not a good skill at all either. It's a shame though, because the bow looks very cool visually, but the stats are just horrendous. So next we have Zoshia's bow. This bow is pretty interesting because the stats are pretty mediocre, to be honest, and it has power coding, which is okay, but it's not as good as close range coding, but it has a very special skill called White Flame Torrent. What White Flame Torrent does is very interesting. Basically, as you do normal damage with your bow, you're gonna have additional instances of flat damage. So even though the bow has mediocre stats, the supplemental damage from White Flame Torrent helps the overall DPS. And the interesting part is that it's synergized with the set bonus Scorcher from Rathalo's set. If you have Scorcher and White Flame Torrent, the tick damage that you get will be significantly higher. It's pretty difficult to quantify exactly how much of an increased damage it is, and I plan to make a specific video about this bow, but what I can tell you so far is that this bow is pretty good, but for Dragon, it's not as good as Guardian Arcveld. However, it's not far off, so if you want to change things up or you like how the bow looks, you can definitely use it and you won't be missing on much damage. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual builds now. The first build I'm gonna show you is the default endgame build. So compared to the last build, we trade 4-piece Gormagala set bonus for 3 points of agitator and 1 point of burst. Now, I must warn you that the difference between this build and the last build is extremely small, so don't expect a huge gap in damage between this one and the last one. And if you're curious, because this build uses agitator, and agitator obviously is only active when the monster is enraged, during the calculation for this build, I considered an uptime of 60 to 65% for agitator. In my opinion, 60 to 65 is a very reasonable uptime for agitator. Usually, if you're a decent player, you're most likely gonna be around 80% rather than 60. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that this build uses Constitution 3. It means that if you're using this build, I'm assuming that you either eat for Black Belt high or you'll drink a dash juice. If you don't want to farm for mushrooms for Black Belt or you don't want to drink a dash juice, then you can use this build, which has the exact same damage but has Constitution 5. However, you lose a level 2 slot, which at least for me, I consider to be pretty valuable. Speaking of level 2 slots, on all the builds that I'm showing you today, I slot in Refresh in the level 2 slots, and that's because Refresh is a very easy decoration to get value from. You don't have to do anything special, no matter what you do, you're gonna get value from it. However, if stamina management is not an issue for you, then I would consider slotting in Counter-Strike instead. Counter-Strike gives you a ton of raw damage, so at level 3, it gives you 25 raw for 45 seconds. That's a lot of raw for a long time. So the catch is that normally you have to get a hit to activate Counter-Strike, which honestly, 25 raw for 45 seconds every time you get hit is already quite a bit of value. But on bow, you can also activate it without getting hit on some attacks. As you can see on the screen, if you dodge through a multi-hit attack and get chip damage, it's going to activate Counter-Strike without knocking you over. But if you don't want to deal with that skill, I understand. In that case, Refresh or any other level 2 decoration is fine. So just to reiterate, if you're gonna eat for Black Belt, then use the Constitution 3 build that I showed at the beginning. But if you don't want to eat for Black Belt, then you can use the Constitution 5 version, you're just gonna lose a level 2 slot. So as far as bows are concerned, for most of the fights with this build, you're gonna use either Artian Fire or Artian Water. The reason is, like I explained in my last build video, those two bows have close range coatings, which is a lot better than power and pierce coatings. So for most fights, even if the monster is weaker to thunder or to ice, we are still gonna use Artian Fire or Artian Water just because of the close range coatings. Ideally, you have as many attacks as possible, so for the crafting bonuses, you're gonna choose 3 attacks, and for the reinforcements, you want as many attacks as possible. Obviously, if you don't get 5, this is fine, but as many as you can get. The only exception, weirdly enough, is for Xuwu, because she's very weak to ice and almost immune to any other element. For this matchup specifically, we're gonna use the Blangonga bow. Now the next and final build that I'm gonna show you in this video is the Convert Element 3 build. I'm not gonna explain in this video how Convert Element works. I have a video specifically to explain how this works, so if you're interested you can check it out. But this build I will use on dragon matchups, so that's Rathian, Rathalos and Zoshia for example. And this build got quite a bit of an upgrade because now we can upgrade the Convert Element charm from 1 point to 2 points. Compared to the last version, this lets us add 1 point of burst and 1 point of adrenaline rush, which is quite a bit of damage. As far as weapon goes, the best bow to use is the Guardian Arcveiled bow, but all the dragon bow, to be honest, are fairly close to each other. So if you prefer to use Arthian or you prefer to use the new Zoshia's bows, they're all fairly similar. So luckily this build has Constitution 5, so there's no need to worry about this, and also it has 3 level 2 slots. So once again, for all my builds, I always show refresh in the level 2 slots, but if you want more damage one more time, I would consider slotting in Counter-Strike instead of refresh. Now one more time, if you're not really sure what Convert Element does, I have a specific video about this that I'm gonna put in the description. It explains how the skill works and when it's best to use it. So that's pretty much it for the updates on the builds. Now for the generic build, the upgrade is very minimal, so if you don't feel like upgrading, you're not gonna lose much to be honest. The upgrade to the Convert Element build is quite significant, so if you're planning on using that build, I would suggest upgrading this one though. One final thing, I know some of you are curious about the buffs and nerfs that happen to bow dispatch. I'm gonna cover this in my next video, so just wait a few days and we're gonna go in details about all the change that the bow received dispatch. But that's gonna be it for me. I'll see you guys next time. If you have any questions, as usual, feel free to ask them in the comment section. See ya!